Welcome, and today we're going to create beautiful gradients. Right now I'm in Adobe Illustrator, but everything you learn in this class you can apply to Photoshop and other programs as well, so it all kind of works the same. So I'm going to go ahead and create a few boxes, and we can start off with a few gradient options. So I'm going to go ahead and just select my rectangle tool, and I'm just going to create a couple of long rectangles. And let's go ahead and make this a solid gray color before we have too much fun. So I'm just going to copy and paste a couple of these guys, kind of put them a little bit further apart. And let's start off with just 4 for right now. So let's add some color to this and make some beautiful gradients. So let's go ahead and I'm going to just expand this a little bit, make it a little bigger, and kind of see what I'm doing here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and select this first shape, and I'm going to go to my gradient tool, and you'll do the same thing in Photoshop if you're in Photoshop. And I'm going to pull out my gradient tab. I'm just going to drag it over here so you guys can see it. If you cannot find this, then just go to your window, and then you should have gradient right here. It's checked for me, but let me uncheck it, and then I'll check it again, and you'll be able to see your gradient panel. And also make sure you have show options available when you're doing this. So let's go ahead and create a simple 2-color gradient. So it's going to have one gradient on this side that slowly moves over to the right and changes to another color. It's called a linear 2-color gradient. So we're going to do linear gradients at first. Very simple. So let me go ahead and click on this default. You're always going to start off with this default. Just go ahead and click anywhere on this gradient slider in your gradient panel, and it's going to load in this very boring white to black gradient. So we're going to go ahead and double click on this very first one, and it's going to be our left side. Let's go ahead and double click and choose a color. And if you only see option like a grayscale, there's no problem. You just go over to this extra options panel and make sure that RGB or CMYK are selected. RGB is great. Let's go ahead and pick out a color here. Let's pick out a beautiful blue. Let's fade from blue to green. That seems to be very popular in filters with photos I see on Facebook and advertising. Let's go ahead and do a blue and kind of mess with it a little bit. Okay, I like that. So I'm just going to click off. And then now we're going to double click on here and change this one. So this is going to be the right side that it's going to fade into. If it'll let me select it. And make sure it's, I think I did RGB with the last one. And so let's go ahead and have this fade into a nice green. So it has like kind of a blue to green fading. So there's kind of our gradient. And let's go ahead and select our shape. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can kind of see how this is working. Let's zoom into 250. There we go. This is a simple 2-color gradient, and how I kind of change how quickly it changes from the first color to the second color. I'm going to go ahead and select my gradient tool right here, and I'm going to click and hold the mouse, and you're going to see kind of a line being created depending on how far I drag the mouse. And I'm going to drag it the other way, and you can actually change the direction from left to right. You can make it go up and down, make it go this way, diagonal. This will kind of let you change the linear gradient from left to right. So the further I drag this, the slower it's going to transition from one color to the second color. If I click and drag over to the right, and I do it a very short line, it's going to start the gradient very quickly, and then it's going to end up with a little bit more of the right side if I do it. So just play around with this, with the different directions to kind of see what you like. I usually like long blended ones. I don't like the ones that transition too quickly like that. That doesn't look very good. So I'm going to click and drag and get a nice smooth transition. So that's our first gradient, our first 2-color gradient, and so stay tuned and we're going to create more.